Greetings and salutations, my name is OJ as always, and welcome back to another episode of the DBD-a-thon, a series of videos where I go over every single killer in Dead by Daylight, from Trapper all the way up to the recently released Springtrap. I go over their gameplay / power, their lore, aka just reading their in-game bio as I'm not a lore guy, their teachable perks, as well as their design and my favourite / least favourite cosmetics for them. Now today's object of obsession requires a little bit more attention, shall we say. She is one of the most infamous killers in this game, one of the most controversial in this game, for all the right and wrong reasons. None other than Adriana Imai, also known as the Skull Merchant. Now, as I just mentioned, every facet of the Skull Merchant is controversial in some way, shape or form, and that doesn't stop at her lore. As I do in all of these videos, I will be reading out her in-game bio, and if you're looking for more lore, or more information on the Skull Merchant in general, as I can only do so much, I would heavily suggest Pixelbush, because they not only do really good videos on the lore of Dead by Daylight, but they are like Skull Merchant's biggest fan. I've never seen someone more attached to this character than them, so if you're looking for more information on the lore of this game, as well as more information on Skull Merchant and her history, as well as any changes that the number one fan of them would do, I would heavily suggest going to Pixelbush's channel to watch their videos. But anyways, with that little disclaimer said, her in-game bio reads as such. Another quick disclaimer actually before we begin, I just read the first paragraph of her lore. There's going to probably be a lot of Brazilian words or Spanish words, you know what I mean. I'm an English white man, the worst kind of white man, so if I butcher any words that are, foreign, I do apologise immensely in advance. But with that said, let us read her in-game bio together. The self-made millionaire Adriana Imai came from a humble home in São Roque, Queimados, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and from the school of Boquete Pinto. Her father, Seiya, moved to Brazil as a young man, hoping to see a side of the world completely different than his hometown in Hokkaido. A talented illustrator, he spent his spare time designing colourful characters and worlds. While sketching patrons of a local jazz club, he was approached by Crystal, the owner, to work on a logo. What began as a business partnership would soon become a romantic one, and within a couple of years, Adriana was born. Adriana excelled in all facets of education. A house full of art and music honed a brilliant mind, and her intelligence was only exceeded by her obsessive drive to be the best. While scoring at the top of every class, she was often on the receiving end of disciplinary action due to her overly competitive and sometimes violent nature during schoolyard games. Adriana's mother did her best to keep her on the right track, but her father was increasingly absent as his own obsessive drive ramped up. Adi Valente, a manga about a young girl who saves and protects the weak with her quirky robot companion. Despite working long hours at a canning facility and writing his manga in his spare time, he somehow managed a little time every night to share his wild and highly imaginative illustrations with his daughter. By middle school, Adriana was courted by a fancy private school due to her high performance, and, needing money, Seita spoke to publishers about his unpublished manuscripts. He managed to find a small local publisher to carry Adi Valente, but it meant more work than he could handle. He eventually lost his job at the cannery, giving him more time to develop and illustrate his series. Adriana loved the manga, but the family was forced into hard times. In her final semester, Seita requested higher royalties, but the publishing company went into administration and decided to cut the series. No longer able to afford the school fees, Adriana was pulled out of the elite academy where she was at the top of her class. Belinda was able to negotiate her graduation, but another student was able to take her place at the head of the class. Adriana was furious. On summer break, she learned everything about her rival, where he lived, where he hung out, what he liked to do in his spare time, what he listened to, what he watched, everything. She even stalked him on his way home one late summer evening and considered the myriad of ways she could ruin his life. But in the end, she did nothing, though something awakened within her, and she felt like the anti-hero in a new story her father had been exploring. Seita retreated further into himself and began producing this newer, darker manga, inspired by his visions and nightmares. A manga about a woman who hunts and guts the weak in a nightmarish realm with drones made of salvaged skulls and bones. But unable to sell this manga, Sonjadores Sombrios, the family became solely reliant on Belinda's income. Adriana, looking for ways to make her own money, started a website dedicated to the world of Brazilian manga. It became a runaway success, and significant advertising dollars started to roll in. She realised she had no real interest in writing for it, though she convinced other kids to write for it for free while the money flooded in. The second she got an offer, she sold the site and never looked back. Proud of her accomplishment, she came home to show her parents the check. She never got the chance to show her father though. He walked out of the door that morning, never to return, leaving only a stack of unpublished manuscripts about the skull merchant mercilessly hunting those she deemed worthy of her efforts. To help her mother, Adriana began to study at the library, teaching herself investment and economics, and soon tripled her money. By the age of 18, barely with a high school degree, she had already become a self-made millionaire. As stories of this investment wonderkind spread across Brazil, more and more doors opened for her. Before long, she had the kind of money that allowed her to buy small companies that she would gut, replace with non-union workers, and sell at a profit. The only breaks she took from her corporate obsession was to pore over her father's manuscripts, trying to understand this chilling world he had created. By her mid-20s, she was regularly flipping companies. While finalising on a real estate firm, 2 members of the board moved to block the sale, pointing to the trail of hollowed-out husks she had left in her wake. Adriana was frustrated. It took her weeks to find out who the holdouts were, but once she did, she thought about how it would feel to hurt them. She learned everything about the directors, stalked their every move, and manipulated them into attending a conference in Switzerland. And while on a retreat in the Alps, she made her move. Inspired by the skull merchant and feeling something within demanding expression, she tracked them with a prototype drone and brutally dismembered them with a cruel 2-bladed weapon. The rush of emotion and adrenaline was unlike anything she had ever experienced before, and the company was hers. Thus began an unsettling cycle. Swoop in on her business, destroy anyone standing in her way, and gut the company for maximum profit. She targeted companies with larger-than-life CEOs, and hoped one would present a challenge. None ever did. They just disappeared unremarkably. An aggressive manager of a fireworks company known for his survival tours was her last target, right at the home in Brazil. Survival tours, a perfect cover. Adriana lured him to a decommissioned airship hangar. The hunt started at dawn and went the distance, with her still tracking him well into the evening. Locating him, she used one of her drones to direct him to a dead end, when a pair of kites suddenly appeared on the camera. Then the feed died. Her face hardened. Her eyes widened in disbelief as she slammed her laptop shut and charged to where the drone had crashed. There she found her prey, reaching out to someone in the growing dark for help. Witnesses. Not part of the plan. Without a second to lose, she plunged her blade through his stomach, exposing meat, bone, and a dying heart. The vitiated body staggered left and right, sending a shower of red over the green foliage. As her victim collapsed with a thud, she turned to the young witnesses. Wrong place, wrong time. They broke into a sprint. She gave chase, her blades thirsting for more blood. The lush green of the trees melted into a thick black fog. Real life warped into something like Sonjadores Sombrios. A sick grin crept across her face as she rushed forward to begin a new chapter in her life. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to be real honest. By the way, that's the end of her lore, right? I'm going to be completely honest with you. I do not like it. I really, really don't like it. The first half of it covers mostly her parents and doesn't really acknowledge her too much outside of, the slight hints that she obviously stalked one of her classmates because he was above her. She clearly has some form of a competitive nature. It was very clear she has a competitive nature, and said nature carried over into her adulthood. But the reason she starts killing people, I'm not sure I really buy it. It's kind of, I don't know, I don't really think I buy it. Obviously she stalked people and blah blah blah. I thought of all these ways I could ruin his life. But then she gets to an adulthood and murder? I don't know if I'm missing something. I don't know if I'm missing something, but I don't like how it's kind of written or explained. the first half of it mostly covers her parents and their backstories, and then when it actually kind of mentions her, it says, oh, she's the top of the top, she's the best to ever do it, she's awesome, she's a self-made millionaire at 18? Hello? That's actually kind of crazy. I know she's real smart, top of her class, but I don't think smart, top of the class equals self-made millionaire at 18 just like that. There's like missing context between that and this. Like, I know she obviously ran the website and got the money from that, but how does that money translate to self-made millionaire at 18? Maybe I'm stupid, because I'm not a self-made millionaire, and I'm 20. But I don't like her lore. I really don't. And her lore only plays further into a lot of the other parts of her that I don't like. I'm going to put this as a disclaimer here. This is probably the only killer in the game that I dislike. I actively dislike. I can see the visions behind a lot of this, but none of this is executed well. As I'm sure you can tell from the thumbnail and the title of this video, a lot of the stuff they offer with Skull Merchant, from lore to gameplay to design, sounds cool on paper, but none of it is executed well. The idea of this woman chasing down and buying up companies and destroying them whilst killing the CEOs at the same time is an interesting idea, but it's not executed very well, because why does she really start killing people out of this desire to be the best there is? I don't get it. I'm not really... It doesn't really work for me. And yeah, I don't like her lore. I really don't. I don't like her lore. The idea of her being inspired by a manga character has been criticised a lot by people. A lot of people have criticised the idea of her being like sort of a weeb and being an otaku who wants to be like the characters in her father's manga. But I'm not really... I don't dislike that. I just wish, it was actually kind of shown. We'll get to that when we get to her design, but her inspiration, like, we never we don't really even know what the manga is outside of a woman killing people in a twisted dark realm. That's not enough for me to really get why she would be so inspired to actually take that and do it in real life as well. I don't know. I don't like her lore. That much is clear probably from the way I'm talking about it. But it's just one part of her that I believe has potential. As I said, the idea of a CEO going around buying up smaller companies and killing those CEOs is really interesting. But it's not very well executed, at least not in my opinion, of course. But yeah, her lore is fine. I feel like the probably one good thing is that at least she's kind of connected to her survivors, because she released with 2 survivors, which was Renato and Talia. I like that at the end she starts chasing them, but the rest of the lore I do not like. I'm not very fond of it. Lots of good ideas here, but not very good executions, at least in my opinion, of course. But with that said, let us move on to probably the most controversial part of her, that being her gameplay and her power. Now, usually in the gameplay section, I would just simply describe what their power does, how it works, some small intricacies with it, and then explain how I usually would play her, or how some other people would play her. But Skull Merchant is notoriously one of the most changed killers in the entire game. She has gone through like multiple different versions of her power, not reworks per se, but significant changes that they could be considered like mini reworks. So, in a rare case for this series, I'm actually going to go over the history of her power, starting with how her power was originally when she first released. Now, before I begin talking about how her original power worked out, I would like to just mention the 2 things that will stay relatively consistent across all iterations of her. Those being her drones. Well, they kind of vary from version to version in their application, but they are always there, as well as her radar, which allows her to track survivors that have been scanned or locked on by, her drones. But with that said, her original power consisted of her drones, her radar, and when the drones were deployed, they would enter an active mode if a survivor came close to them. This mode would cause 2 scan lines to spin around in a 360 degrees angle, and if a survivor was in this detection zone, they would build up what is known as lock-on process, as well as giving Skull Merchant undetectable. Now, this lock-on process, if fully built up after 10 seconds, would launch a claw trap at the survivor, as well as cause Killer Instinct to proc for Skull Merchant so she knew who had been trapped, and expose them for a whopping 60 seconds. And here's a little fun fact, the little cherry on top. For every survivor with a claw trap on them, / being tracked, Skull Merchant would get haste, up to a max 7% if all 4 survivors were being tracked. So she gains undetectable, haste, you're exposed, and she gets Killer Instinct so she knows exactly where you are. Isn't that fun? Also, when tracked by a claw trap, you can be seen on her little radar as a white dot that she can follow around. And if you vaulted a pallet whilst you had a claw trap on you, the pallet would break like a mini dissolution. How fun! Isn't that awesome? To counter this, survivors could disable drones by walking up to them and hacking them, which would get rid of them, and at any point the Skull Merchant can actually recall or manually activate drones. Yeah, this original power was something. It really was something. It's like you just I don't even know how to... This is one of the worst designed powers they've ever made. The idea of using drones to track people and keep a hold of them and constantly be on their asses, always after them, is a really cool idea. I really like the idea of using drones to track people around the map, and the radar, the radar alone is really, really cool. I like the idea of being able to track survivors because they have a little status effect on them. However, undetectable, exposed for 60 seconds, and haste all at the same time? No, that feels a bit much. That's a lot. That's really a lot, especially 60 seconds exposed. And breaking pallets when you vault over them if you have a claw trap on them? Come on. That's not fair. That doesn't feel fair. Not for either side. I remember playing as her when she first came out, and I just felt gross. I felt gross for playing as her. And a lot of people did not like her, and with all due reason as well. In my opinion, I feel like her original power was very poorly designed. I at the time didn't really know how to change it. I would usually try and give ideas for how to change it, but I'm not very good at that. I'm gonna be honest. So when it came to Skull Merchant, I just feel like it was a numbers game per se. Lower the numbers on a lot of her stuff. The exposed status effect shouldn't be 60 seconds, it should be 45 or 30. The undetectable, maybe you could boost that from just being 2 seconds, you could make it 4 or 6. Lower the haste to be a max of 5% or something. I don't know, and get rid of the destroying pallets when you vault over it. That was insane, that's so stupid. But yeah, her original power was very odd, very strong, and not fun to play with nor against. I'm sure you all know about the chest merchant thing. Chest merchant is in relation to a game where one dude played a Skull Merchant, and using a 3-gen, which is where 3 generators are close to each other, making it easy for killers to go from gen to gen and protect them, managed to delay a game up to, I believe, an hour long. Skull Merchant, with her power, was very, very, very good at holding the 3-gen. And at the time, we didn't have the thing that makes it so a gen can only be regressed so many times. Actually, that chest merchant game, as well as her existence and how good she was at holding a 3-gen, introduced the system that made it so you couldn't kick a gen 100 times. That's how bad this power and its design was for the game. It's really, really bad. I don't like using it. I don't like going against it. No one liked, outside of the people who just loved 3-genning, I don't know anyone that actually liked how her original power was designed, outside of a conceptual manner like myself. I think conceptually there's a good idea here, but how it was originally executed was terrible. But anyways, after her original power, she did in fact get some changes. So fun fact, after I just stopped reading her original power description, I checked patch 6.6.2's changelog. A lot of the stuff in here is actually part of her original power description on the wiki for some reason. Not sure why, but anyways, In patch 7.3.0, she gained a little rework, a massive change. I'll show, you can read it on screen as I'm speaking, but they overhauled how her drones work. They no longer have the active zone that I mentioned and instead use their laser beams to detect moving survivors and inflict them with the lock-on. They have stealth and scouting mode, with the former hiding the laser beam. They detect survivors that detected by a drone gain a stack of lock-on instead of it being a status effect that builds up. Now, when it reaches 3 stacks, they will receive a claw trap. Failing to hack a drone applies a stack of lock-on. Healthy survivors who receive a claw trap will be injured. Injured survivors who receive a claw trap suffered from deep wound, and claw traps also apply the broken status effect while they are attached. Survivors that are detected by a drone will suffer from a 10% hindered status effect for 6 seconds and are revealed by Killer Instinct for 3 seconds. And there's a lot of buffs here as well. Using the scanner no longer reduces movement speed, max drones from 4 to 6, undetectable for 8 seconds when placing a drone, reduce the minimum distance between drones from 22 meters to 16 meters. And there's a lot here. You can see that quite a lot. This rework didn't really help her reputation, because now by this point she had the reputation of being the chest merchant. No one liked playing as her, no one liked playing against her, and that permanently damaged this killer. She has still, to this day, never recovered from the reputation hit that chest merchant game seems to have done for the community. I could go play Skull Merchant right now, and I'm sure at least someone's going to disconnect. It's just the way, like, she has that bad an effect on the game. Even with her changes in mass as of now, she just doesn't... No one likes her still. I don't really like her all too much. Most survivors don't like going against her. Obviously, this patch, I don't really remember it all too well. I don't think I was playing around the time this 7.3.0 patch came out, but I doubt this really helps because people still just disconnected. It was better, but still not great. It's still not great. I mean, good thing is they got rid of the pallet vault claw trap cause pallet to break thing. That's good, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know. This is just not good. I don't. Skull Merchant is such a hard killer to talk about because I'm not very knowledgeable on all of the intricacies related to her. That big patch that I just mentioned, 7.3.0, there's a lot of changes here, but I don't really remember them, and I'm not really sure how that would affect her gameplay because I'm not very smart. I must admit that I'm not very smart. And again, literally a whole 1.0 later, in patch 8.3.1, she got another set of changes, such as getting 5% haste when a survivor is scanned by a drone, reduce the strength of the hindered status effect from 10 to 8. And this was the big one that I remember a lot of people complaining about, was that they changed her scan lines from 2 to 1. That kind of gutted her. This was the patch. This was the patch where they gutted Skull Merchant. This is the patch where they stabbed her in the stomach, just chucked her to the floor and said, don't worry, we'll rework you next year in 2026. See, I don't like her. I've said that a few times now. I don't like the Skull Merchant. On paper, I think she's an interesting killer who has a lot of potential, but in execution, I don't find her fun to play, nor do I find her fun to go against. And she's a very complex killer, and I'm not smart enough or have the patience to want to learn her. I'm not interested in her enough to want to learn her, which is why I don't really understand how the 7.3.0 changes would be received, as to me they just look like changes, and I don't really understand how they would influence her gameplay from moment to moment. But I do know that the 8.3.0 update gutted her, and I don't think that's right. I really don't. I think the way they've handled Skull Merchant is very despicable, in a sense. There are people that like her. Mint Skull is a good example of such. He's made multiple videos that are hours long about the Skull Merchant and all of this stuff around her. This patch killed her. Like, she is bottom tier. She is bottom 3, maybe. And the reasons for that is obviously remove the stealth mode. Drones are always in scouting mode and active. Reduce the number of scan lines. Reduce the hindered status effect. She now suffers from movement speed or a movement speed penalty when deploying a drone or while inspecting the radar. Survivors who are fast fighting can no longer be detected by drones. Skull Merchant doesn't gain haste from survivors having a claw trap. It's all of those changes back to back to back to back. What do you say to that? She's worthless. She can be played well by people who are good at her, but to be good at her, you have to really kind of put in the effort, and the reward you're getting from being good at her is not the sort of reward you would get from, say, putting your time and effort into Nurse. Sure, the skills you'll learn as Nurse are only applicable to Nurse, but the skills you'll learn are for the best killer in the entire game, and has been for a very long time. The only time that was even debatable and who was the top was in the Twins' like PTB, where they were just their rework, quote unquote, where they became just unbelievable gods that were mindlessly strong. But the way they've although I don't like her, I really don't, the way they've treated Skull Merchant is despicable. You've just killed, gutted a killer, left her for dead, left her at the bottom of the tier lists, just made her not fun to play as, not fun to go against, and you just kind of say to us, oh, don't worry, we'll rework her next year. I think the estimated date is spring 2026 or March 2026, something like that. That's a long-ass time away. 8.3.0, that patch was quite a while ago. We're in 9.1.0 right now. That's really bad. That's disgusting. That's disgusting behaviour. And I mean that as in disgusting behaviour, as in the company. The way she's been treated is very, very wrong. Although I don't like her, the sort of shit like this is awful. I can't even imagine how I would feel if, say, someone like Nemesis suddenly just got hit with a wave of nerfs that left him at the bottom of the tier, and they just said, oh, don't worry, we'll rework him in a year and a half time. I would just be pissed beyond belief. I can't even imagine how Skull Merchant fans feel, and I feel so bad for them. Although I, myself, was one of the people saying, she sucked when she came out. She was awful to play as and play against, and she's not good conceptually. No, she is good conceptually, but in execution, she is very, very bad. I just, this is such a hard killer to talk about. I'm really rambling right now because I don't really know what to say. How do you talk about Skull Merchant? I'm not educated. I'm not educated on how to talk about Skull Merchant, if that makes sense. But what I do know is that although her current state, because let's be honest, her current state isn't too different to her patch 8.3.0 version. If I just scroll up on the thingy that I have right now, it's just, honestly, this entire segment has been incredibly messy. I'm sure you can realise that. And I've mostly been struggling on what I want to say on Skull Merchant. I don't think there's much I can really add to this conversation at this point. So many people have discussed how she's been gutted, how she's been changed, how she's been ruined, but I think she was fundamentally flawed from the very beginning. Her first design for her power was released at a time where 3-genning was a real problem, and she only fanned the flames and made it so much worse. And that effect has permanently scarred her reputation, and since then I don't think behaviour has known what to do with her. There is potential that in everything that she does, there is a potentially cool killer behind it all. The drone tracking playstyle, another trap killer, a killer that needs to work on a macro level to sort of keep tabs on an entire area with all of these drones, is really, really cool. However, if I wanted to play a game on a macro level where I kept track of the entire map at once, there is a killer that I would play that gives me that same feeling but isn't overly clunky to play as, unfun to play as, and unfun to go against. And that's Singularity. Singularity, for me, fulfills the same role that I feel like the Skull Merchant is attempting to replicate. Skull Merchant, it feels like they want to make her this sort of macro killer who plays on a larger scale with drones across the map to keep tracks of all the survivors around and to just sort of hunt them down and take them one by one. But that's what Singularity does for me. So why in any situation would I prefer to play as someone who feels conceptually cool but horrible to play as and against and doesn't have a good design in gameplay, lore, or actual character design, when I could play as Singularity? Someone who has fantastic lore, a fantastic design, a fantastic gameplay that is very fun to play as, if stressful. These are both killers not made for everyone. However, in a comparative sense, Skull Merchant is just worse. in every sense of the word. I want to like her. I do. I don't want to be upset and angry and dislike a killer. I do try my best to like these killers, but akin to the twins, I just don't care. But Skull Merchant is different. Skull Merchant is a killer that I don't like because of how she's designed in every facet of her character. I want to, but everything is working against me and preventing me from liking her. But yeah, this segment has been very messy, very blabbery, and I do apologise again for that. But with that said, let's move on to something that is still not very good, that being her teachable perks. The first of said perks is known as Game of Foot, with a description reading as such. First, you pick your prey, then you pick it apart. While you are chasing the obsession, this perk activates. Damaging generators, breaking walls, or breaking pallets gives you a 7% haste status for 10 seconds. Whenever you hit the survivor with the most total time in chase with a basic attack, they become the obsession. The killer can only be obsessed with one survivor at a time. Haste increased killer move speed. With flavor text reading, this one might actually be a challenge. A quote from the Skull Merchant herself. This perk sucks. It just really sucks. You have to be chasing the obsession, so 1 out of 4 survivors, and you have to break away from a chase to damage something. Damaging a pallet? Yeah, you're going to probably be doing that in chase, and the 7% haste does help you catch up, and there is, potential by combining Game of Foot and Brutal Strength to sort of basically negate a pallet, but only when you're chasing one survivor. Sure, you can transfer the survivors, like the obsession, to a different survivor with a basic attack, but what you have to do to get this perk to work, and for the benefit you get from it, it's just not worth it. It's just not. Just like the rest of her, it's potential. There's good ideas here that you could do something with this perk, but the effort you have to put in to get a measly benefit that can be achieved easier from other perks, which are better, bar none. There's no point in running this perk. It's bad. It's just bad. It's just really, I don't like being negative, I'm going to be honest, unless there's something to be negative about. But Skull Merchant, man, I can't give you the benefit of the doubt every single step of the way. Just disappointment. Game of Foot is a bad perk, and I would highly recommend against using it, unless, of course, there is some secret technique that I don't know about, and I'm sure someone will tell me if that is the case. But anyways, with that said, let's move on to her second perk. Said second perk is known as Thwack, with a description reading as such. Your prey is terrified by your relentless pursuit. Thwack starts with 3 tokens. When breaking a pallet or breakable wall, consume a token. Survivors within 36 meters scream and their auras are revealed for 4, 5 or 6 seconds. When hooking a survivor, regain a token. With flavor text reading, all those who stood in her path feared her mighty Thwack. A quote from Son Hedores Sombrios, issue number 3. This perk is fine. Again, this isn't good. It's not good. It's not a good perk. There's benefits here. Making survivors scream is good. Revealing their auras for 6 seconds is good. But you have to break a pallet or break a wall. You're basically only really going to be doing that in chase, and there's not many breakable walls on most maps. Some maps don't even have them, full stop. So on a map like the game, this perk can see a lot of value because it's an indoor map and there are quite a lot of breakable walls, and it's relatively small as well, which does help. But otherwise, it doesn't do anything. It's not very good. It just kind of that you can get better benefits from perks that are easier to activate. This is a very exhausting video to make. I want to be positive. I'm really, really trying to be positive about Skull Merchant. I feel bad for her. I do. I feel bad for how she's been treated. But man, when every facet of you is just not good, I can't really be positive. Thwack is a fine enough perk. It's okay. You can find some niche uses. But otherwise, I don't like it and I wouldn't recommend. I've used it in I think I used it in a video once, but otherwise I wouldn't recommend using it. With that said, we move on to her third perk. Said third perk is known as Leverage, with a description reading as such. Kick your competitors when they're down. Never let them regain lost ground. When a survivor performs the unhook action, their healing speed is reduced by 30, 40 or 50% for 30 seconds. With flavor text reading, good. Now we can move in for the kill. Another quote from the Skull Merchant. In my opinion, this is probably her best perk, maybe. It's still not great, but it's probably her best, mostly because it's a passive perk, which, as you know, are usually better perks, ones that you can activate passively. I mean, look at some of the best perks in the game. Scourge Hook Pain Resonance is probably still the best perk in the game, and all you have to do is put someone on a Scourge Hook to get value, right? This perk can see benefit in, obviously, anti-heal builds, specifically with Scourge Hook. It's the Scourge Hook from Pinhead, the one where it makes survivors hemorrhaged and mangled when they come off a Scourge Hook. That plus this can equal, the world's slowest heal time. It's a fine enough perk. It's like a good 4th perk when it comes to creating an anti-heal build, but it's still not like a go-to great perk. It's just fine. None of her perks are good. They're all either very niche, bad, or fine. And that kind of upsets me, because not only is she flawed in her lore, her gameplay, she's also flawed in her perks, and what we're now going to talk about, her design. Now, this is probably the part of her that I dislike the most, by far. As we read earlier, her inspiration for the Skull Merchant comes from one of her father's dark mangas. Where is that shown in her base design? Can anyone tell me? Can anyone tell me anything in her lore shown through her base design? The fact she's rich is shown by the fact that her mask is diamond encrusted? That's a boring way to show wealth. The bracelets being silver, the jewelry, that doesn't really tell me shit. It doesn't really do shit for me. It's not very... Silver jewelry isn't particularly a illustrious, easy to recognize, rich look, per se. Her outfit is boring. It's some greenish overalls with a white dirty shirt underneath it. Where's the manga inspiration? You have to go... Okay, when it comes to her design, I could see them in a theoretical new design for Skull Merchant. They can go down 2 paths. You go down the manga path, or you go down the rich businesswoman path. This doesn't look like either of them. For the manga path, you could literally just take an anime character and kind of just make them dark, make them evil looking, make her look literally like a comic book character ripped from the page. Make her look like some evil manga villain who murders her. She doesn't look like a manga character, I'm gonna be honest. And secondly, she doesn't look rich, like a rich businesswoman. She looks like a blue-collar worker. She looks like one of the workers at the company that she guts and gets rid of. Her design sucks so much. It frustrates me to no end how the idea on paper of some rich businesswoman who LARPs as a evil manga character, that's a really cool idea, but it's not shown in her base design at all. Day in, day out, I have nightmares over this base design because it's horrendous. The cut that she has, horrendous. The mask, horrendous. The outfit, horrendous. None of it works. None of it. The diamond encrusted mask doesn't work because it doesn't fit the outfit that she's wearing. Her outfit is some boring, bland, brown, military coloured overalls. The t-shirt is dirty, which, yeah, sure, that makes sense. But, she doesn't look anything. What does she... Oh my god, this is the most angry I've ever been. She doesn't look like anything. Her skull, her drones look cool, right? I like the way the drones are designed, and I think her weapon choice is quite cool as well. I like obviously the detached skull being the bottom of the drone. That's really cool. And the weapon is very akin to the Predator's, blade that he has on his arm. That's really cool as well. But the outfit, the mask, the hair, the weird, nail extension thingies she has, the little silver dagger looking fingernail things, they look bad as well. They don't fit. Nothing. It's like she's got so much shit clashing against one another in her base design, and it infuriates me to no end because there was so much potential. Such a good concept of a rich businesswoman LARPing as a manga character, and you do this with it. Oh my god. Whew. I've wanted to get that off my chest for years now. Years, I tell you. Her design is very, very bad and reeks of missed potential without a shadow of a doubt. But with that said, let us move on to my favourite and least favourite cosmetics for her. Now, as I always say as a disclaimer in every single one of these videos, when it comes to cosmetics and how I pick them, my least favourites cannot be anything below a very rare, because if I could pick something below a very rare, I'd just pick some boring green ray colour, and that's boring for you and for me. And when it comes to my favourites, I'm allowed to pick whatever the hell I want. But speaking of my least favourite, we have Dark Hero. I had to check the file name because I forgot the name of it. This skin is very bad. It just does not look good. It really doesn't. I get the idea what they're going for, like a Mad Max apocalyptic look, but it just doesn't work on her. It's mostly the hair, the toothpaste looking mohawk. It does not look good. The mask is fine. The outfit is weirdly tame for a Mad Max design. It looks weirdly boring. I expect like more chains, more spikes, more anything. The weapon is kind of cool though. I will give it that. The 5-bladed sort of Freddy Krueger looking claw, that's fine enough, but yeah, this outfit just looks really bad. I don't know, it's like a half-assed attempt at a Mad Max look. It just doesn't look good. Still better than her base design though. Who said that? I didn't say that. Oh, I might have said that. But anyways, with that said, let us move on to my favourite skin, which is thankfully very good. Now, when it comes to my favourite, there are actually quite a few options. Skull Merchant has a lot of good cosmetics, and that's not hard to do when her base design is as bad as it is. But, and something I forgot to mention sort of throughout this video, it feels like they tried to go with a look of sort of sexual appeal for Skull Merchant. I've noticed that a lot of people obviously thirst for her, and the main account for Dead by Daylight in the past, I vaguely remember them doing like thirst trap videos for the Skull Merchant. Like, she is clearly meant to have some form of attractiveness to her. I don't think her base design gets that across at all, along with everything else. However, I do believe that my favourite skin for her, known as Opening Gala, takes what I liked about the Skull Merchant's concepts and executes them relatively well. As you can quite clearly see, she is dressed up in a very, very fancy get-up. Lots of golds, lots of sort of velvety reds. The gems that make up her mask look incredible. And this is the design that I would propose should have been her base design. The look is befitting of a manga character, at least in my opinion. It has that sort of vibrancy that I would almost expect from mangas per se. And when I say mangas, I'm going to be honest with you, just for reference, most of my experience with anime and manga comes from shonen. So if my vision is warped because I don't understand, yeah, you can call me out for that, right? But this design is unbelievably good, and I feel like it should have been her base design. It has the illustrious, rich look of a businesswoman. She is dressed in a golden suit, which is obviously not the usual look for the stereotypical look for a rich woman, but it fits her very well. The red high heels, although a bit impractical to run in and chase people, is, you know, befitting of this look. The excessive amount of gold on her is really good, and the blood splatters all over her clothing imply that she has obviously been killing people in this outfit. I also think the little skull on her hip is, you know, a visual indicator outside of her drones that she is a Skull Merchant per se. And also, of course, the haircut she has in this outfit is a billion times better than the one she has in her original. This outfit, and you even, as I mentioned just now, she's meant to have clearly some sort of attractiveness to her, and they've kind of tried to imply that through the cut across the front of her sort of suit, how it like exposes her midsection and parts of her chest. That adds to sort of like the like alluring look that I presume they were going for, and I know a lot of people like her design. She's just, this design, the Opening Gala outfit, is just very good. It really feels like it takes the concepts of being a rich businesswoman, LARPing as a dark manga character, and actually like executes upon them. And it even adds in the sort of attractiveness she's meant to have, according to like sort of general discussions I've seen online and some of the stuff Behaviour's posted, etc. The Opening Gala outfit is what I would submit to be her base design. And with that said, and it's also my favourite skin because of that reason, but with that said, yeah, this is the end of the video. This is my longest video on a killer yet, and yeah, it's very messy, and I really, really do apologise for that. I've been trying to struggle and think about how I wanted to talk about her, and I kept hitting walls and blah blah blah. But yeah, I don't like Skull Merchant. She has a lot of good concepts. I like the ideas behind her, but I do not like the executions for her whatsoever. But anyways, I hope you have a good evening, afternoon, morning, etc. Like, comment and subscribe if you managed to make it this far. And we will be talking about one of my favourite killers next. And I know I say that a lot, but this time it does truly ring true. That being the Singularity.